Panantukan, also known as Filipino Boxing, is an empty hand martial art with many of its techniques coming from the movements of the knife, stick, and sword. The purpose of this video is to share with you 7 entries from the Panantukan that I like to teach. Before we go further, I need to give you 3 disclaimers, pointers really, about this video. First off, for this particular set of material, it would really help if the student already has good boxing skills. And what that means is clean punches, strong striking, good footwork, and live sparring. Second point, it would really help if the student also has some knowledge of the history of the Filipino boxing. Unfortunately, this is going to be beyond the scope of this video, but I feel it's important. If you're interested, personally, I would recommend Guru Dan Inosanto's Panantukan video. It's volume 4 in his definitive Inosanto collection. And in this video, he covers history, lineage, several techniques. And I think it's a really good overview, and it would definitely assist in your understanding of the art of Panantukan. And lastly, you should be aware that not all FMA systems have Panantukan. Now, with that being said, let's look at what we intend to go over today. For the purpose of this video, we're going to first showcase a quick overview of the material. But stay tuned, because we'll go back, slow it down, and detail it out. Okay, here we go. So for simplicity of transmitting this material, we've decided to simply just show this off of a jab. I know that can be a little sterile. If we try to show all the variations, this is going to be a really long video. We also decided to standardize the follow-up after each entry. So let's see what that looks like. First entry, when he jabs, I'm going to trap gun, and now I'm going to do my follow-up. It's going to be a cross, a slap, an elbow, a knee. I'm going to offset his balance and then try to land some kind of finishing blow. Now we're going to show you an overview of all the material we intend to cover. Now we're going to put all 7 entries together in one flow. Now I know this might not be realistic, but it's a really nice memory tool. What my training partner is going to do, he's just going to put a stem out there. He's going to put his jab out there and hit the freeze button right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run all 7 entries sequentially. And what that looks like, I'm going to trap gun. And look how subtle it is to change to the split entry. The third technique is the Gunting. And then I'm going to Songab, Dalineus, Knuckle Cruncher, and angle 1. And then we'll launch into the follow-up, which is the cross, the slap, the elbow, the knee, disrupting the balance, and trying to land some kind of finishing blow. This sequential linking of techniques, it's kind of like a physical compendium, or you could call it a living reference. Now, of course, this training method, it might not be good for the new student, but for me personally, it helps to organize and maintain my skill. The first entry I'm going to share with you today is called the trap gun, and there's many variations. And in the Filipino martial arts, they really like to monitor the hands because they're always expecting a weapon to be drawn, even if the altercation just starts off with a fist fight. Because some people, they don't even care about a weapon being involved in an altercation. That's just not in their awareness. But the Filipino martial arts, they're weapons based, so they're hyper aware of a possible weapon being drawn. So he jabs right at my chin, and I'm going to hunt that rear hand. Some variations, you're outside the hand here. If his hand is wide, you're going to trap on the inside. Also, if you even just cover the hand like that, these are all variations of the trap gun. To simplify it for this particular video, I'm going to hunt the outside of both hands. So when he jabs, I'm going to try to pin that just like that. From here, we're going to go into our follow-up. And that's going to be a cross, a slap, an elbow. We're going to knee, we're going to offset the body and try to fire some kind of finishing blow. The second entry is what we call the split entry. And what that looks like, when he jabs, I thread my punch right on the inside. It's like he's throwing a jab, and so am I, but my jab wins. There's not much to say about this entry, which isn't already self-evident. What I want the student to practice is this kind of exquisite timing, meaning when he fires his punch, I am simultaneously threading my punch on his. Right? Before we go any further, I need to talk about timing of the entry. And this actually applies to all 7 entries. There's 5 basics that we teach. For example, let's look at the split entry. So if his hands are up, before he even throws the punch, the first timing is I can thread the split entry right between his defense. That's the first timing. The second timing is his initiation. Just as he throws the jab, I try to score the split entry. The third timing is actually what I usually require of the early student to learn first. His punch is already landed on my chin, but I'm simultaneously parrying his punch. So when he jabs, this is the first model, which is the harder model. It requires exquisite timing, and I like the student to start with that. The fourth timing is what we call the retraction. So the punch is aimed at the mark and it's retracting. So when he jabs, and then we try to land a split, and then we'll follow up. The fifth timing is his punch has come and went. And this could mean that you've actually been hit with the jab, but you still launch into your skill set. And what that looks like, just put the jab right on the money. Now I'm going to split and cross, slap, elbow, and follow up. Entry 3 is the gunting. Gunting means scissors. And a lot of people don't like the gunting. My advice is don't be for or against. It's simply an empty hand motion based on movements of the Filipino martial arts weaponry, especially the knife.
Yes,
you have 2 nerves here. You have the ulnar nerve and you have the radial nerve. And right now with the empty hands, we're going to try to mouse one of those. Jab. 1. Don't get hung up on this. If the student already has strong weapons training in the Filipino martial arts, especially the knife, then the scissors motion is already in the muscle memory. You know, they just cut anything in here because that's where the plumbing's at. The closer to the heart the cut occurs, the quicker the person bleeds out. Songab. Songab just means I jab. What I want you to see with this entry is the setup on it. So if I have a high guard here, I'm not going to be able to get to this particular technique. Instead of from a high guard, I'm going to drop my lead just a little bit, and that way I can shunt through his jab on the outside. So when he jabs, a heavy parry, and I try to score the eye. Notice my fingers are up for his safety. Sometimes even a heavy check, jab, see how his head comes forward a little bit? And you can get an accident that way. So how we train it is the fingers are up for safety, all right? So when he jabs again, cut the line, I'm just gonna leave it on target, and this will give me a reference to how to compute your next shot. And then I'm gonna pull for the cross, the slap, the elbow, the knee, and the finish. Fingers up for safety. Yeah, that's written right in there. Dalineus. Dalineus means to dominate the line. What that looks like is when he jabs, I'm just gonna cut right in there. From here, I'm gonna slingshot his arm for the cross, slap, the elbow, the knee, and the finishing blow. When he jabs, my parry hand just slides right in there. Notice how my elbow is down. If my elbow is up, he's the one that's gonna score here like that, right? So when I cut the line, my elbow's down. It's a really efficient technique. But the downside to it is it requires commitment. And if I miss, and he jabs here, I'm open for that cross right there, so I gotta be hyper vigilant, so to speak. One thing I should mention that applies to this entry, and this also applies to a lot of the entries that I've been sharing with you today, they don't work well when you have boxing gloves on. Just that extra little bit of padding, even if they're thin gloves. See, if he jabs, when I slide that line, the boxing glove, it tends to skip over. All right, and plus with the boxing glove, you're not allowed to hit the eye anyway in the boxing rules. If your main art is boxing, you may not like a lot of these. But when it comes to really applying a technique that's gonna do some damage or maybe prevent an altercation, this is a nice technique to have in your toolbox. The Knuckle Cruncher. What that looks like is when he jabs, I'm gonna try to guide that into my elbow. And then I'll launch the follow-up from here of the cross. Slap, elbow, knee, finish. Of course, there are other versions of this. For this particular video, I'm just showing the vertical elbow. And for his safety, I'm just heavily parrying his hand into my elbow. But I'm not actually lifting my elbow to cause an impact. So when he jabs, I'm just pulling it down there. But if you really want to cause more damage, I would lift it and add momentum to it. I could do a horizontal line. I could even pull it into my rear elbow like that. Another version when he jabs, I might be able to knee it and then I'll follow up. So some of the origin stories on this entry actually come from the weapon. If he was to jab, they would draw the knife and the fist would run into the knife. Or I could draw it with my right hand and you'll guide it in like that and then follow up. Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't be worried about my knuckles.
Right, so that's why they pull it up and they go like that. The last entry I want to share with you today is named Adlaw. And what that means is sunline. That refers to the angle 1. The angle 1 and the angle 2 are really important in the Filipino martial arts. Of course, comes from the weaponry. How we apply that in the Panantukan might look a little funny, but when he jabs, I'm just going to smash it in like that. And then I'm going to pull for the cross, the slap, the elbow, the knee, and the finishing blow. This technique actually comes from the weaponry. Now this might look a little funny, I'm just gonna show it with the sword, but when he jabs, they just lay it right in there like that, almost like a sword punch. How we apply this technique with the empty hands, we're just gonna smash what we call the angle 1, right on his punch. When he jabs, you're just gonna lay it right there, and then you're gonna launch your follow-up. And then I'm gonna pull for the cross, the slap, the elbow, the knee, and the finishing blow. Jab in there. In conclusion, I hope this video increased your understanding of what Panantukan is, or at the very least, piqued your interest enough to seek a more in-depth study into the art. Yes, I know there's much more to the art of Panantukan. This video only focused on a handful of entries, There is so much to learn when it comes to the Filipino martial arts. You got to remember, Panantukan is simply a subsection of a much older mother art that many people refer to as Kali. Since this can be such a complex topic, I've added some additional information and historical context to the video description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like and subscribe button and hit me up with any questions or comments you may have.
Very nice.
You were already following.